What's up, guys? I'm Carmine and I play bass. And today we're going to go over 5 helpful tips when teaching yourself how to play bass. Let's go. One of the most important improvements I made when I was a young bass player and when I was new to playing bass guitar was establishing a consistent practice routine. I've never been one who wanted to practice all that often, but when I was in college, I had a bass professor who basically taught me a new approach and a new way to look at practicing. He would see me consistently come in and only learn 50 or 60% of the coursework for that week, and he would ask, "How much are you practicing?" I would be honest with him. And so together we came up with a way to help me practice more frequently, which is try to just practice for 15 minutes a day. Set aside a time that can be consistent, that you hit every single day. This will establish a great through line from what you're learning, songs of others that you're working on, songs of your own that you're working on, and maybe there's even some good recording skills in there if you work within a DAW or make videos or something like that. This also teaches you how to practice in a micro kind of way as opposed to taking on a huge workload. Obviously, if you have a show coming up or something you need to be prepared for, you're going to practice a little bit more, you're going to shed. If you have a rehearsal, that might be a little bit longer. But when you have 10, 15 minutes available to you, you just pick up your guitar, plug in some headphones or play out loud, and just get a quick 10, 15 minutes in. And that little bit of time builds up every single day. It has helped me become a better musician in all ways. I'm currently doing it with piano now because I'm not so great at piano and I want to be better. Every moment that I have a little bit of extra time, I try to just practice for 10 or 15 minutes. And it compounds and builds up week after week. The second thing is really learning and understanding the function of the bass guitar. It's really easy to understate how important to the overall harmony of an ensemble the bass guitar is. You see these other instruments that can play chords or that more frequently play chords, and you think that they're affecting the chord structure or the progression of the song more. Arguably, the bass is more important in creating that harmony because it does often play the lowest note, the bass note. Understanding that function, how it can change chords, how playing different bass notes can affect different parts of the song. If you really dive into becoming a student of that, it will get you much more comfortable at playing the bass and knowing how to serve each song or each ensemble that you're playing with. Personally, I came over from playing guitar primarily, and I had to shift my focus to a much simpler one. Even as a rhythm guitar player, obviously as a lead guitar player, you're going to be playing much more consistently, much more frequently, and you're going to get used to that. You have to be busy and fill up space throughout the song. It's a little bit of your job. Bass is not always that. A lot of times, it's a less is more kind of thing. You'll hear me say that 5 more times in this video. And you really have to understand how it anchors down conceptually the rest of the band. Leaving space as a bassist and the notes you don't play is possibly more important than the ones you do. When you leave some space and don't hit the beat constantly, you're following along with your drummer, you're grooving, but the moments that you leave space and don't play are going to make those moments that you do play a lot more impactful. For instance, if I play to this drum groove here, I'll keep it simple. I'll try my best to outline the kick pattern the drummer is playing. The moments I leave space, you feel the lack of low end. You don't really want to do that for too many prolonged periods of time within a song unless you're going for that kind of dramatic effect. But within phrases, it can make the notes you play really impactful. When starting to play bass, I think the smartest thing you can do and the most practical thing you could do is learn other people's songs. It might be challenging at first, so maybe you just try to learn and work within the roots of each chord and learn the roots of the songs and work your way through it rhythmically. But practicing other people's songs is an obvious place to start with any instrument, and the same holds true with bass, and it gives you something really fun to play along with. I would start with music that you like and maybe music you know already on other instruments. That'll create a really strong mind-to-hand connection when playing. The other thing that you should try is playing to some styles and to some artists that you don't typically listen to and that maybe you're not the biggest fan of. Why is this important? It'll get you out of your comfort zone a little bit and teach you a different style that could really lend itself to some important skills on bass that you might be holding yourself back from because you don't listen to that kind of music naturally. Don't be afraid to keep it simple when learning other people's songs, and playing and learning by ear is really helpful here. Some ear training can help you get a lot stronger at your instrument. What I would do is I would just turn on some of my favorite songs and fiddle around, find the key, maybe find a scale that works, and then just try to find what the chords are. Over time, you get better and better at that process, and then you find out you can play anything. It's kind of like transcribing something by ear, except you're just doing it in real time and you're not writing anything down and keeping track of it. You're just playing it and trying to remember it, which also strengthens that muscle of learning a song. I know a lot of people who switched over to bass from a different instrument, taught themselves the instrument, and kept it really simple just by playing roots, and went up on big stages and played big shows very, very early on in the process. So it is possible. Don't be afraid to keep it simple. So knowing when and how to play is probably the most obvious and important function of any instrument. When it comes to bass, we talked prior about knowing when not to play and knowing when to leave space. Well, so when do you play? I, especially early on, followed the drummer. It's the easiest thing to do. It's the smartest thing to do for the rhythm section. It just makes the most sense. And the drummer usually is the one that has the most responsibility in driving the song. So I follow the drummer's energy and I follow the patterns that they might be doing. If they're playing consistent 16th notes on the hi-hat, or if they're playing constant 8th notes, or then you hear your keyboard player or your guitar player or someone else in the band playing really consistently and a quicker kind of pattern, maybe you want to follow along with that. And that's the energy of the song. But in another song, you might be really laid back and the drummer might just be in the pocket. And that might be a time to tap into what we talked about before, leaving some space, just kind of grooving out a little bit. Every song calls for a different groove and a different energy, and using your ear to follow along and being willing to serve the part is the most important thing you can do. So just play accordingly. Here's a quick note on fills. You're going to go through a phase early on in your process where you get a little bit better at the instrument, you get stronger. You're then going to want to start to play fills every bar, every other bar. It's natural, it's normal, it's a normal human instinct. You can't do it. Fills can be very, very tricky when you're new to an instrument. I found because they give you too much to think about. So you learn the song and you have your muscle memory down of how it goes. You're prepared. You're feeling confident about it. And then you might just go jump into a fill, and that might throw off your whole groove and your whole understanding because it gives you too much to think about. And it's a little bit of pressure. You really want to be prepared for that kind of improvisation because it usually does come from improvisation. If you're able to practice the fill and get it really down pat, that's great. Do that. Take that approach. But if it's something that's a little more spur of the moment and improv, be very careful. Tread lightly when it comes to playing too many fills. I usually find that one in a song is great. Sometimes I play none. Sometimes I play two, but I really don't overdo it. But I did have a phase early on where I really overdid it. It's so obvious and is unpleasant to the ear. That's all I have for you today. Just 5 helpful tips when you're transferring over from a new instrument or when you're teaching yourself bass. I think lessons are great. You can always find tutorials online and things to follow along with, but nothing better and more satisfying than teaching yourself a new instrument. And when you're new, you need a little help figuring out what's wrong and what's right. So don't be afraid to reach out to me and to anyone else who plays bass to get a leg up on how to get better. Thanks so much for following along. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you like bass videos and content like this. I really appreciate all your feedback and all your comments. And remember, you don't have to be the fastest or the best bass player. You just have to be funky. Peace.